So let's talk about one single coded message from 1917.
Right. The Zimmermann telegram.
Exactly. And this telegram wasn't just planning a war, it was designed to start a huge conflict right here in North America.
But instead, it completely backfired.
It did. It became the very thing that dragged the United States into World War I and really changed the course of history.
It's an incredible story. And to get it, you have to picture what Europe was like then.
This is 1917.
Yeah, World War I has been grinding on since 1914, all starting from that assassination in Sarajevo. For 3 years, it's just this brutal, miserable stalemate.
Muddy trenches in France and Belgium, mostly.
Exactly. And all that time, the U.S. is officially staying out of it.
Right, the policy of isolationism.
That was the idea. President Woodrow Wilson even won his re-election campaign on the slogan, "He kept us out of war."
And most Americans really wanted to avoid Europe's problems.
They did. But, the isolationism was, well, it was more political than economic.
Because the U.S. wasn't sending soldiers, but it was definitely sending supplies.
Oh, absolutely. American factories, American farms. They were sending enormous amounts of food, weapons, all of it, straight to Britain and France.
Which creates this incredibly high-stakes supply chain across the Atlantic.
It does. And that brings us to Germany's secret weapon.
The U-boat. The submarine.
These things were revolutionary. They were silent, deadly, and just incredibly good at sinking the ships carrying all those vital supplies.
Germany's goal was pretty simple then.
Very. Just cut off that supply line, starve Britain into surrender before the U.S. can get involved.
And that strategy had already caused huge problems.
A massive diplomatic crisis. You had the sinking of the Lusitania back in 1915.
A British passenger ship.
Right, but it had over 100 Americans on board who died. And that just created this huge wave of anger in the United States.
So Germany had to back off a little.
They did. They made a promise, the Sussex Pledge, basically saying they'd stop sinking passenger ships without warning. They really didn't want the U.S. in the war. Not yet.
Which kept things neutral for a little while.
For a time. But by the end of 1916, the war is still a total deadlock. And the German High Command decides they need to do something drastic. They need to gamble.
And this is the big shift. February 1st, 1917.
Germany breaks its promise and goes back to unrestricted submarine warfare.
Okay, so what does that mean exactly?
It means their U-boats would sink any ship found in the waters around Great Britain.
Any ship. Neutral, American, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, no rules, no warnings, just sink it. They knew, absolutely knew, this would probably mean war with the United States.
So why do it? That seems incredibly reckless.
It was a cold calculation. They bet that they could starve Britain into surrendering in 5 or 6 months.
They thought the war would be over.
Before the U.S. military, which was pretty small and unprepared at the time, could even get its soldiers over to Europe. It was a massive roll of the dice.
And knowing that this would make the U.S. furious, they needed a backup plan, a distraction.
A huge distraction. And that's where the German Foreign Secretary, Arthur Zimmermann, comes in. He needs to make sure those American troops never even leave home.
Which brings us back to the telegram.
Exactly. So in early January 1917, Zimmermann writes this top-secret coded message.
And it's going to the German ambassador in Mexico City.
Right. The whole idea was to keep the U.S. military busy fighting a war on its own soil.
Because if you're fighting a war on your southern border, you can't be sending troops and supplies across the Atlantic.
You can't. And the way they sent it, it shows a stunning level of arrogance.
It was encoded, of course.
Of course. A numeric code they thought was unbreakable. But the problem was how they transmitted it.
Okay.
The British had cut Germany's direct transatlantic cables at the start of the war.
So they couldn't send it directly?
No. So they sent it, and you can't make this up, they sent it using American diplomatic cables.
Wait, what? They sent a secret plot against the U.S. using U.S. government wires?
That's right. It's an unbelievable security failure.
So what was actually in the message? What was this explosive plot?
It was a formal offer for a secret military alliance, Germany and Mexico together.
And what were the terms?
Germany promised substantial financial support. Basically, a ton of money for Mexico to wage war on the U.S.
And in return, Mexico was supposed to attack the southern border.
And if they did, Germany promised they could reclaim their lost territories.
You mean?
Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona.
Wow.
And as a bonus, Zimmermann suggested that Mexico should also try to get Japan to flip sides and join them.
That is incredibly audacious.
It's pure geopolitical arrogance. But the second that telegram was sent, Its fate was sealed.
Because the British were listening.
They were listening to everything. They had this secret code-breaking unit in London,
Room 40?
Room 40, and they had already gotten their hands on parts of Germany's code books, so when this message came across, they put their best people on it.
And they start translating the numbers back into words.
And the moment they read it, they knew. They knew this was the key to getting America into the war.
But they had a huge problem.
A massive one. How do you show this to President Wilson without admitting you've broken Germany's top secret codes and are reading all their diplomatic mail?
You'd be giving away your best intelligence source.
Exactly. You can't compromise the operation. So they played it very, very smart.
What did they do?
They waited a few weeks, and they arranged for a slightly different copy of the message to be found.
They created a cover story.
A perfect one. They claimed a spy in Mexico had managed to steal a decoded copy from the telegraph office there. It completely protected Room 40.
So on February 24th, they finally presented the translated text to President Wilson.
And his reaction was, well, predictable. He was just shocked and angry.
He had tried so hard to stay neutral.
Bent over backwards. And here was definitive proof that Germany was actively plotting to carve up the United States. It was a direct threat to the country's sovereignty.
Wilson realized neutrality was no longer an option.
Not really. But the final decision came down to the public. On March 1st, the full text was published in American newspapers.
And the country exploded.
Pretty much, you had this instant outrage, especially in the states that were targeted, like Texas and Arizona.
But I've read that some people didn't believe it at first.
That's true. A lot of Americans, especially those who were deeply isolationist, thought it was a fake.
Just a trick by the British to drag them into the war?
Exactly. And that doubt might have continued, except for one person.
Arthur Zimmermann himself.
The man himself.
Yeah.
In what has to be one of history's greatest blunders, a reporter asked him about it in Berlin, and he admitted it.
He actually confirmed it was real.
He did. He stood up and gave a speech, saying the telegram was real and authentic. He tried to justify it, saying the plan was only for if the U.S. declared war first, but
The damage was done?
it was over. His confirmation killed all the doubt. It unified American public opinion overnight.
People who wanted to stay out of the war were now demanding action.
The threat of an invasion from the South, even if it wasn't very realistic, was a powerful motivator.
So what about the other parts of the plan? Did Mexico or Japan ever consider it?
Not for a second. The German plan was doomed from the start.
Why not?
While Mexico was just recovering from its own long, brutal revolution. They had no money, no stable government, and their army was in no shape to fight the U.S.
Their leaders knew it would be a disaster.
A total crushing defeat. And Japan was already on the side of the Allies. They had zero interest in switching sides to join what looked like a losing cause.
So the whole distraction strategy just completely fell apart.
Completely. And with the telegram revealed and German U-boats sinking more American ships in March, war was inevitable.
April 2nd, Wilson goes to Congress.
He gives that famous speech saying the world must be made safe for democracy.
And 4 days later, April 6th, 1917, the U.S. officially declares war on Germany.
The very thing Germany's plan was supposed to prevent, it directly caused.
And the effect on the war was just transformative.
It really was. Now, it took a few months for American troops to get organized and shipped over, but their arrival was a huge psychological boost for the British and French.
Armies that had been bleeding for 3 straight years.
But the material support was maybe even bigger than the manpower. The U.S. was an industrial giant.
So you're talking about money, food, trucks, planes.
An industrial tidal wave.
Yeah.
The sheer amount of resources and millions of fresh soldiers made it mathematically impossible for Germany to win.
Their gamble had failed.
Totally. They tried one last big attack in 1918, but the weight of the American forces helped push them back. By the fall, the Central Powers were exhausted.
And the fighting stopped, November 11th, 1918.
The armistice was signed. The war was over.
When you look back, the Zimmermann telegram is just this perfect example of how intelligence can completely change global politics.
It is. One message, intercepted and decoded, pulls a reluctant superpower onto the world stage and decides the outcome of the biggest war in history up to that point.
And that's really its legacy, isn't it? It wasn't just a failed German plan.
No, it was the spark that shattered America's long history of isolationism. The events of 1917 really forced the U.S. to become a major player on the world stage, a role it never gave up.
It's so ironic. In trying to keep America busy at home, Germany just pulled the full weight of American power down on top of themselves.
A true turning point in history, all because of a few hundred coded numbers. And that raises a really interesting question for you to think about.
Go on.
If the British hadn't found that perfect cover story, If they had been forced to reveal Room 40 to prove the telegram was real, do you think Wilson could still have convinced a very skeptical American public to go to war based on that kind of secret intelligence?
Good luck with your studies.